dose of reality, bringing you a pot of podcast with a side of reality bites.
Hello, wonderful people out there. Welcome to the Reality Podcast, the show that discusses the reality issue alongside the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm Rosa, and together with me today are Hafiz. We will be your hosts for this episode. Today, we will focus more on good health and well-being. Sexual harassment in the workplace is a form of discrimination that includes any uninvited comments, conduct, or behavior regarding sex, gender, or sexual orientation. Sadly, many are not aware that they are being victimized, and those who do are oftentimes afraid to report it. How do you know that you are being taken advantage of or victimized at the workplace? Join us as we discuss and tackle this topic with our guest speaker. Know your rights and learn to deal and protect yourself at those instances. Before we start our conversation with our special guest for today, let's hear a sharing from Coach May Ng.
Hello, my name is May. I am a swim coach, currently also training swim teachers with the Malaysia Swimming Teachers Association. In the swimming sport, it can be a place where sexual harassment can take place, especially when swim lessons for ladies are conducted by male teachers. We have heard of many cases that have happened, and it's indeed very disturbing. What is sexual harassment? It is an unwelcome physical behavior, and it is an inappropriate sexual remark towards someone in a workplace or social situation. It can be anywhere and in any environment. Sexual harassment involves threatening, abusive, or insulting words. It is actions and behaviors and communications of sexual nature. It can be verbal, visual, or physical. It can hurt a person's physical and psychological well-being. Why is sexual harassment such a problem? Sexual harassment is happening everywhere, but yet it can be preventable. It has a significant impact on individuals and organizations. Now, the female gender are much more likely to be victims of sexual harassment as they are more vulnerable, and possibility is the environment they are in. Now, is there gender discrimination, or is there lack of respect of each other's gender? Or are we being not educated enough in this topic? Or are we just shying away from this serious problem? What types of sexual harassment are there? We have verbal, whereby comments and remarks made by one that are sexually offensive. We have visual, any inappropriate screensavers or posters or pictures, or magazines with explicit sexual content that is seen or enjoyed, even sharing pornography. We have physical, whereby a forced and undesired groping or touching, or an unwanted sexual activity happens. What are some of the physical impacts? Now, victims are physically, emotionally, and psychologically wounded that may take a lifetime of healing. Victims of sexual harassment may experience various physical symptoms such as depression, lack of interest, isolation, lack of confidence, and low self-esteem. It will affect their sleep, so they will have sleep disorder. They can have stomach problems, loss of appetite, sweating, dizziness, tremors, and nausea. The issues and symptoms go on and on. They may live in fear from the opposite sex. And this situation can create a lifetime of trauma in a person. What should one do if sexually assaulted? Firstly, make sure you're safe. The trauma of the sexual assault can leave survivors with physical, emotional, and psychological wounds. You need to digest what has happened. However, you would want to talk to someone you can trust. Reach out for support. You may be in shock. So having the support of the community and someone you trust that can understand what you have been through is a crucial factor in your long-term recovery. You may consider medical options. Can you talk to a doctor? You may want to process the experience and consider legal options, or maybe report to the police. Now, there may be confusion on what has happened and what to do next. A major consideration for victims is the fact that the assaulter may be someone they know or with whom they may share mutual friends and families and acquaintances with. So it may be very difficult. However, do the right thing. Should one talk on the sexual harassment? Yes, the awareness is so important. Understanding human rights are equally in both genders are so important in these times and age. Enough education, correct upbringing is very crucial.
The SDGs provide a new opportunity for the private sector to support the delivery of health needs around the world through their products, services, and business activities, including value chains and distribution networks, communication activities, occupational health and safety practices, and provision of employee benefits. By ensuring that workers have safe working conditions and access to health services, Companies establish healthier staff and better relationships, which in many cases has positive effect on productivity. Alright, Rosa, if you don't mind, can I ask you something? Mm, have you ever experienced sexual harassment in the office?
Sometimes you didn't realize it. You think it is normal and it is joke for some other officer. Like I have received inappropriate image or videos telling you jokes. It is kind of every day I receive a sexual comments about my appearance and my body parts. To make us more clear about what is considered sexual harassment at work, the moment that you all have been waiting for, allow me to introduce our guest speaker for podcast. We have Ketua Bagian Siasatan Jenayah Ibu Pejabat Polis Daerah Kota Semarahan, Assistant Superintendent Abdul Razak Musa. Hello sir, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Rosalinda, for inviting me in this session. I'm ASP Abdurazak, currently working in PDRM based in Kota Semarahan. Talking about sexual harassment, it's a serious unethical action which can cause unsecure environment towards the victim and society. Those who are committed with such behavior should strictly be taken into judgment of law so that the society will have awareness upon the matter, especially among the students and workers. Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. Hasif and Rosalinda there. I would like to continue a bit on sexual harassment. That before we charge judgment law to the criminal, the person who is doing it, we need to know the offense. So let me define. Abuse and harassment can take many forms and can be hidden. Harassment and abuse includes verbal, non-verbal, visual, and physical elements. It can include creating negative work environments through intimidation, physical violence, sexual harassment, and other behaviors that harms an individual or group. Harassment and abuse can harm individuals in many ways, both physical and psychologically. In some cases, this can lead to loss of dignity and confidence, depression, anxiety, stress, reduced productivity, injuries, and suicide, and other forms of that. So, based on this define, we can charge them under Section 81A of the Employment Act 1955. Anyone can make a sexual harassment complaint, whether it is by an employee against another employee, by an employee against any employer, or by employer against an employee. So this is the act that we can apply to put the criminal on judgment law. I think that's to alert the public that all criminals activity there's a judgment law for them. So thank you very much, Rosa and Hasif.
Tuan Razak, can you explain what are some of long-term consequences of sexual trauma?
Yeah, thank you, Hafiz, for the question. It's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, the consequences for this sexual harassment might cause of harm to individuals in many ways, both physically and psychologically. In some cases, this can lead to loss of dignity and confidence, depressions, anxiety, stress, reduced productivity, and injuries and suicide and other forms of death. So this is the consequences that might the victim experience for long-term consequences. Thank you, Hafiz.
Tuan Razak, many people out there want to know what can one do if sexually assaulted. You can explain about this?
Okay, good question, Hafiz. Let me share with you what should you do if you are a victim of workplace violence. Okay, you had been assaulted. So what you can do is call 911 and other appropriate emergency contacts such as Federal Protective Service for that particular facility, particularly if the situation requires immediate medical or law enforcement personnel. Please do so. And remain calm and contact supervisor. Secure your personal safety first. Leave the area if your safety is at risk. So that's the action that can be taken by the victim if they are being assaulted at workplace. That's Matt. Good sharing from me. Thank you, Hafiz.
Okay, Tuan Razak, this is the last question for you. Can you talk to your doctor about trauma?
Yes, Hafiz, yes, you have to talk to your doctor. How do we get over trauma from harassment? That you need to have the doctor for advice. And here's some steps every victim must take in order to heal from sexual harassment. The first one is to accept what happened. Okay, and talk to someone about the harassment. Journal about your experience. Stop blaming yourself. Bring closure to your experience. Use the experience to help others and find a counselor to motivate you back. So I think that's the good explanation by a doctor. Yes, you have to consult a doctor. Thank you, Hafiz.
Thank you so much, sir, for your good sharing. At least people out there know what is will happen when they are experiencing the sexual harassment in the office and know what is the type of non-verbal and verbal sexual harassment in the office. Like myself, sometimes it's confusing me whether I should report it or not. Okay, people out there, at least we know that employees can be harassed in a variety of ways at work. While sexual harassment garners most of the attention, many non sexual types of harassment can and do often occur on the job. It is important to understand harassment in the workplace because it can affect you and impact your career in a different ways. Knowing what constitutes harassment can help you spot it and handle it if it happens to you, or even better, help you prevent it from happening in the first place. This includes recognizing what qualities as harassment, how to file a harassment claim, and what to do if you lose your job because you are report harassment. People have stereotypical or prototypical beliefs of schemas about who is victim of sexual harassment. In Western culture, it is a young, attractive woman. But for our Malay typical mind that because you wear a sexy dress, that's why you attract to a sexual harassment in the office. For myself, even I'm wearing a baju kurung as well, still my officer like to do a joke that I didn't like to hear it. That's make me feel what is the reality behind the myths. Can you help me, sir, with this question?
Okay, thank you, Rosalinda, for the great questions. What is the reality behind the myths? Okay, we want to discuss further. There's a reason why. So the myth: if a woman dresses or behaves in a sexy way, she is asking to be sexually harassed. So the reality is studies have found that victims of sexual harassment vary in physical appearance, type of dress, we're talking about age, and behavior. It's not dressing that causes sexual harassment, but the harasser himself. And then another myth is it's a small matter, is it's a bit of fun and flirting. Anyway, women enjoy it even if they pretend not to. So women who are harassed definitely don't agree with this. Sexual harassment is not flirting. Studies indicate that most harassment has nothing to do with flirtation on the part of the predators. Sexual harassment is a power play that uses sexuality to degrade another person. Research shows that victims often leave their jobs to avoid harassment. Okay. Another myth is only young women get harassed. Sexual harassment happens to all women, the reality at the same time in their lives. Regardless of age, physical appearance, or marital status, sexual harassment is about abuse of power. Those who are more powerful harass and intimidate those who are not. For example, an employee who often harasses will usually not harass his employer, but would not be afraid to harass a fellow employee, especially if he knows he can get away with it. So another myth is if you ignore harassment, it will go away. The reality, it will not. Research has shown that simply ignoring the behavior is ineffective. Harassers generally will not stop on their own. Ignoring such behavior may even be seen as agreement or encouragement. So we continue with the myth. Sexual harassment rarely occurs. The reality, sexual harassment is extremely widespread. It touches the lives of 40 to 60% of working women and similar proportions of female students in colleges and universities. And then our last myth I want to share with you this evening. Many women make up and report false stories of sexual harassment to get back at their employers or others who have angered them. The reality, it is not accurate. Research shows that less than 1% of complaints are false. Women rarely file complaints even when they are justified in doing so. So that is the reality and the myths that I can share with you. Thank you.
I believe women out there, just not myself, is afraid to do a complaint because we are afraid to lose our job. And as well, it is unlucky for me. People that harass me in my workplace is my boss itself. He had warned me if I'm doing a police report, he will transfer me to a small district. Can you help me, sir? If I file a complaint, everyone at work will know and I don't want to deal with it. What can I do, sir?
Thank you, Rosalinda, for the question. First of all, your report is confidential. You don't have to worry about to lose your job. With the Employment Act 1955, sexual harassment, you are indeed being protected. Under Section 81A of the Employment Act 1955, anyone can make a sexual harassment complaint, whether it is by an employee against another employee, by an employee against another employer, or by the employer against the employee. In Malaysia, sexual harassment, as defined by Employment Act 1955, is any unwanted conduct of a sexual nature, whether verbal, non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical, directed at a person which is offensive, humiliating, or a threat to their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the best answer. It made me feel very confident and comfy that I believe women out there as well know what they should do if they face this situation again. And last question from me, sir. Can an individual be sued for sexual harassment?
Thank you, Rosalinda, for the last question. Can you sue the harassment? Yes. Depending on where it occurred and what effects are you can sue for harassment. Okay, if you are harassed in the workplace and are a member of protected class, you may be able to sue for workplace discrimination under federal and state law. Second, if you are intentionally harassed and suffer extreme emotional distress, you may be able to bring a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress under state law. Third, if you just want the harassment to stop, you may be able to petition a state court for a harassment restraining order or an order for protection. And then last, there may also be grounds for you to press state criminal charges. So you can sue the harassment. Thank you.
Get kick.
It is a surprise for me that it's been like a month we don't contact each other because we have a commitment, and I feel so lucky enough that my bestie that have been migrant in Perth is willing to share her experience on sexual harassment. Hola, my dear. Can you share a little bit about yourself and to the people out there? What is your experience, either it verbal or non-verbal sexual harassment in the office that you have been experienced?
Hi everyone, my name is Lillian. I'm a friend of Rosalinda for more than 15 years. We used to work together back then in Malaysia. Right now, I'm residing in Perth with my Aussie husband for the past 7 years, coming to 8 years. And yeah, it's been good, and the life is good. Everything is alright. So I can say it's nothing more, nothing less like in Malaysia, except that we have a different kind of all culture come together, which is why it can be very, very diverse, just like Malaysia. So let's talk about sexual harassment at work. For me, I've been working in a mining, or should we call it, in Malaysia we call it cari gali. All right, so in Malaysia we have this Charigali petroleum in the sea or whatever we call it. However, here we have a different kind of mining. We have iron ore, we have rare earth, we have golds, and many more. So with mining industry, let me talk you through in regards of mining industry in Australia. So it's a one big massive economics that contribute to the economy of Australia, where majority or most of people here working in mining, where they have to fly from the region, or should I say, for example, like me, I have to fly to this remote area, so-called like Leverton, like Pilbara, and it's kind of like 1 hour, can up to 2 hour journey of flight, and it can be any different kind of flights. So when I talk about mining, there'll be a lot of things happening. It could be underground, it could be a surface where all the digging and the surface mining operating. And also in regards of that as well, I can talk to you through in regards of the people that I work with from my own experience. So maybe I can say 70% it will be Aussie themselves, 10% will be New Zealand, people from New Zealand, and the rest would be a multicultural. In regards of that, I would say there's been some good and bad experience working in mining. I can say there's some, to be honest, there are a little bit of discrimination when I first started, and I'll talk you through in regards of sexual harassment. If you want to talk about sexual harassment, if any of you probably kind of understand, with your understanding is just like a sexual harassment in regards of physical harassment, it's not about that. It's more about sexual harassment can be verbal and it can be physical. And in talk you through about sexual harassment, it's not just in regards of a man sexually harass a woman. It can be vice versa, meaning to say it could happen to a male. The reasoning is when I said that it happened. It really does happen. From the news that I read ever since I'm here, from the things that I heard in mining, it can happen to male as well. It might be a joke for some people who do not understand the mining industry, but it really happened out there. Okay. When you talk about mining, when you talk about working remotely, when you talk about working away from your family, it's not just you flying back and forth from, for example, for myself, going to a remote area where I am far away from my family, far away from my husband especially, and my stepson. It could take you for one swing or one shift, we call it. The whole shift, it can goes to 7 days and it can goes to 14 days working remotely, and sometimes it can goes more than 21 days once, and then you come back to Perth, you come back where you flew in before. Excuse me. It could take you for example, my swing used to be 14 days on, meaning to say 14 days work remotely and then come back to Perth for 7 days resting. When you talk about 14 days remotely, it will be 12 hours a day. And when it comes to 12 hours a day, everybody will be like so knackered. Not naked, knackered. Naked means tired, means exhausted. And then when you're far away from people, far away from your loved one, there'll be other things that can happen. For example, one of it, the sexual harassment can arise, or even loneliness, or even just anything from my from what it happened in front of my eyes, or based on my experience myself, I would say it never happened to me. However, it ever happened to the person that I used to know. So in regards of that, I won't say a name, and it's really sad when it happened to her, where it falls to depression, where she have to do something that she's unwilling to. So which is why when I said sexual harassment can be verbal, can be physical as well. So what happened to her is pretty much a verbal and physical, which it's really unfortunate because she doesn't say out loud. She didn't take any action towards the said person, or back then I would say one of our team leader. I can say it's our ship boss or something like that. However, I would not disclose the name. And in regards of that, so she been through a lot. In regards of sexual harassment, where it started just from flirting. I won't blame her and the said person himself. Like they're flirting. She just come out from a very bad relationship, and he's away from his family. So the flirting happened, and then she knew it come to it really goes from bad to worse, where he start going to her room, and then she really hesitant, and then she doesn't know what to do, and then he start abusing her in regards of how to say it, just threatening her. She might lose her job or something, so she have to do things that she doesn't want to do. So that we can say it's a sexual harassment as well, where it's not just verbally, because it comes to physical as well. So unfortunately for her, it happened maybe more than 2 months, and then she end up leaving the job because she doesn't want to blame and shame, because she involved with it as well.
Such a tragic story, and we as a woman have to suffer to face this bad man and a bad attitude, I can say. And how you handle it? Either you keep silent or report it. Last question from me. What is your advice to women out there when they face this situation?
Well, as we know that my dear friend, she left the job, and then there's no action taken towards the said person. However, he keep on doing it to the newbies or the new starter, and then he end up getting fired as well, as the newbie straightly go to the upper higher level, and then letting the management know in regards of what's going on, and which is good thing, as these people or this kind of harassment, it have to be recorded, it have to be reported as well, because it's a no-go. It's really inappropriate behavior to do so, which is why in Australia it's really implemented a sexual harassment that happened in the mining industry, where about maybe 60 to 70% of the sexual harassment happens to a woman in mining, because there's a lot of women involved in mining. They can be a truckies, they can be a shot firer. They work in a different kind of job in a mining industry themselves. And when I said sexual harassment can happen to a man, it does happen to a man as well, where they have no choice and in regards to do so, because they doesn't want to lose their job. And it's kind of weird when I say it, but it does happen, and we're talking a fact, we're talking about the truth, we're talking about what's really going on in mining industry. These people are the people like me myself are really pretty much aware of this kind of behavior where it's a no-go. So whenever you have this kind of thing happen to you, I would recommend you straightly do your report and straightly report this kind of behavior, where these kind of people, they have to stop. Otherwise they will just go and keep on doing what they're doing. So be brave, be strong enough to make a report, and never be afraid to speak out. Thank you.
What I have learned today from our discussion and the answer from our sweet officer, the best way to respond to someone who is sexually harassing me, I'm gonna name the behavior and state that is wrong. For example, say, do not whistle at me, that is harassment. Or do not touch my butt, that is sexual harassment. Tell them exactly what you want. To the victim out there, I believe in you. It took a lot of courage to tell me about this. It is not your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve this. You are not alone. I care about you, and I'm here to listen or help in any way I can. I'm sorry this happened. This shouldn't have happened to us.
Thanks, Rosa and Torazak. This conclusion should help women out there in dilemma whereas they should not feel ashamed with what happened, and it will be better to come forward to authority figure in order to catch the perpetrators and help creating safe environment for all female.